What if I told you that we're potentially walking straight into an economic disaster that will make 2008 look like a minor inconvenience? While mainstream media celebrates market highs and economic resilience, the smart money is quietly positioning for the biggest wealth transfer in modern history. The uncomfortable truth is that every warning sign that preceded major crashes throughout history is flashing red right now, but this time, they're amplified by technological complexities and monetary policies that have pushed us beyond traditional recovery mechanisms. Here's what financial elites don't want you to know. The curiosities of economic geography reveal that our interconnected global system has created vulnerabilities that previous generations never faced. A crisis starting anywhere can now cascade worldwide in hours, not months. The same patterns that destroyed fortunes in 1929 are repeating, but at digital speed across every corner of our planet. But here's your advantage: you still have time to position yourself on the right side of this massive shift, if you're willing to face some uncomfortable truths about where our economy is really headed. You know that strange feeling when something just isn't right? Well, that same sensation is taking hold of economic experts around the world right now. The warning signs are flashing like red lights on a control panel, and frankly, many prefer to ignore them completely. Runaway inflation, rising unemployment, and financial market instability are just the tip of the iceberg of a crisis that might be approaching fast. It's not just about numbers on a spreadsheet anymore, we're talking about patterns that have historically preceded humanity's greatest economic catastrophes. Geographic curiosities show us that certain regions have always been more vulnerable to global economic fluctuations than others. Countries like Greece, Argentina, and Venezuela have already tasted the bitter flavor of devastating crises, and their experiences serve as living laboratories of what can happen when economic fundamentals collapse entirely. Meanwhile, nations with diversified economies and strategic geographic positions, such as Switzerland and Singapore, have managed to weather previous storms more effectively. Geography isn't just about mountains and rivers, it determines trade routes, access to natural resources, and ultimately, a nation's capacity to resist adverse economic winds. But here's the thing: the signs we're seeing today are different from previous ones in their sheer speed and interconnectedness. The global economy is more interlinked than ever before, and that means when one domino falls, all the others follow in a devastating cascade. The curiosities behind financial markets reveal that high-frequency algorithms can amplify crashes within seconds, creating panic waves that spread across world geography faster than any human trader could possibly react. This new reality demands that we pay attention not only to traditional indicators, but also to emerging patterns that might herald the next great economic storm. History has this weird way of rhyming, doesn't it? When you dive deep into the patterns of financial crises, you'll discover some fascinating curiosities that'll blow your mind. Every major economic collapse follows a strikingly similar playbook: excessive speculation, inflated asset prices, and that dangerous cocktail of greed mixed with denial. The 1929 stock market crash, the 2008 financial crisis, and even the tulip mania of 1637 all share DNA-like characteristics that any savvy observer can spot from miles away. It's like watching the same movie with different actors, but the plot remains eerily identical. Geography plays a crucial role in how these crises spread across continents like wildfire. The curiosities of economic contagion reveal that financial panics don't respect borders, they follow trade routes, banking relationships, and investment flows with mathematical precision. When Wall Street sneezed in 2008, the entire world caught pneumonia, from Iceland's banking system collapse to Dubai's real estate implosion. Countries that seemed geographically isolated suddenly found themselves drowning in the same toxic waters. The interconnected nature of modern finance means that a crisis starting in one corner of the globe can devastate economies thousands of miles away within hours. What's truly mind-boggling is how each generation seems to forget the lessons learned from previous disasters. Behavioral economists have identified this phenomenon as disaster myopia, our collective tendency to underestimate risks that haven't materialized recently. The curiosities surrounding human psychology show that people who lived through the Great Depression were incredibly cautious with money, while their grandchildren, who never experienced such hardship, became much more willing to take on massive debts and speculative investments. This cyclical amnesia creates the perfect conditions for history to repeat itself, often with even more devastating consequences than before. You'd be amazed at how much your zip code determines your economic fate during a crisis. Geographic curiosities reveal that location isn't just about scenic views, it's about survival when the economy hits the fan. Countries blessed with abundant natural resources like oil, gold, or rare earth minerals often weather economic storms better than those dependent on service industries or manufacturing. Take Norway during the 2008 crisis. Their sovereign wealth fund, built from oil revenues, acted like a financial life jacket while other nations were drowning in debt. Meanwhile, countries heavily reliant on tourism or exports found themselves particularly vulnerable when global demand suddenly evaporated. The curiosities of economic geography show us that coastal regions and major port cities have historically been more resilient during downturns, simply because they maintain better access to international trade routes. Cities like Singapore, Hong Kong, and Rotterdam didn't become economic powerhouses by accident. Their strategic positions make them natural hubs for commerce, even when times get tough. On the flip side, landlocked regions or areas dependent on single industries often face the harshest consequences during a crisis. Detroit's automotive industry collapse is a perfect example of how geographic concentration of economic activity can become a double-edged sword. But here's where it gets really interesting. Modern technology is reshaping traditional geographic advantages in ways that could completely flip the script during the next major crisis. Remote work capabilities, digital currencies, and e-commerce platforms are creating new economic geographies that don't follow old rules. Countries with superior internet infrastructure and tech-savvy populations might find themselves at a significant advantage, while traditional economic powerhouses could struggle to adapt. The next recession might reveal geographic curiosities we never saw coming, as economic power shifts toward regions that have embraced digital transformation most effectively. Here's a dirty little secret that central bankers don't want you to know: they're flying blind in uncharted territory right now. The traditional tools that worked for decades are becoming about as effective as bringing a knife to a gunfight. Interest rate manipulation, quantitative easing, and money printing used to be their magic wands, but these curiosities of monetary policy are losing their potency in today's hyper-connected, digitized economy. When Jerome Powell at the Federal Reserve or Christine Lagarde at the European Central Bank make announcements, markets sometimes react in completely opposite ways than intended, leaving these supposedly all-powerful institutions scratching their heads. The geographic spread of economic influence has created a nightmare scenario for central bank coordination across different regions. What works for the US economy might be poison for emerging markets, and vice versa. The curiosities of global monetary policy reveal that when the Fed raises interest rates, it can trigger capital flight from developing countries, creating currency crises thousands of miles away from Washington, D.C. Countries like Turkey, Argentina, and Sri Lanka have learned this lesson the hard way, watching their economies crumble not because of domestic issues, but because of decisions made in distant boardrooms they have no influence over. Perhaps most troubling is how cryptocurrency and decentralized finance are creating parallel financial systems that central banks can't control or even fully understand. These digital curiosities operate across geography without regard for national borders, making traditional monetary policy about as relevant as a horse and buggy in the age of space travel. When people can move value instantly across continents using blockchain technology, bypass traditional banking systems entirely, and create their own currencies, the very foundations of central banking authority start to crumble. The next major crisis might reveal just how powerless these institutions have become in our rapidly evolving financial landscape. Welcome to the age of meme stocks, NFTs, and cryptocurrency millionaires who can't explain what blockchain actually does. The curiosities of modern speculation make the Dutch tulip mania look like child's play in comparison. Today's bubbles inflate and burst at lightning speed, driven by social media hype, influencer recommendations, and algorithm-fueled trading that operates 24/7 across every geography on the planet. GameStop's meteoric rise, Dogecoin's inexplicable journey to mainstream acceptance, and the NFT craze that had people paying millions for digital pictures of monkeys, these aren't isolated incidents, they're symptoms of a financial system that's lost touch with fundamental value. The geographic distribution of speculative fever reveals fascinating patterns about human behavior and economic desperation. Countries experiencing high inflation or currency devaluation often see their citizens diving headfirst into speculative investments as a form of economic survival. In places like Turkey, Venezuela, and parts of Africa, cryptocurrency adoption isn't about getting rich quick, it's about preserving wealth when traditional banking systems fail. Meanwhile, in wealthy Western nations, speculation has become a form of entertainment, with apps like Robinhood gamifying trading and turning financial markets into social media platforms where memes drive billion-dollar market movements. What makes today's speculative bubbles particularly dangerous is their interconnected nature and the speed at which they can contaminate entire economic systems. The curiosities of algorithmic trading mean that a panic sell-off triggered by retail investors in one asset class can cascade across completely unrelated markets within minutes. When Terra Luna and its stablecoin UST collapsed in 2022, it didn't just wipe out cryptocurrency holders, it triggered margin calls, forced liquidations, and credit crunches that rippled through traditional finance. The next major bubble burst might reveal just how deeply these speculative assets have become embedded in pension funds, insurance companies, and banking systems worldwide. Listen up, because this is where theory meets reality and your financial survival depends on the actions you take today. The curiosities of wealth preservation during economic downturns reveal that those who prosper aren't necessarily the smartest or luckiest, they're the ones who prepare while others are partying. Start by diversifying across geography, not just asset classes. Consider opening accounts in politically stable countries like Switzerland or Singapore, investing in precious metals stored in secure facilities outside your home country, and learning about international real estate markets in regions with strong fundamentals like parts of Germany, New Zealand, or certain areas of Canada. Your education becomes your most valuable asset when traditional investments crumble, so invest in skills that remain valuable regardless of economic geography or market conditions. Learn digital marketing, coding, or specialized trades like plumbing and electrical work. These curiosities of recession-proof careers show that people always need these services, even during the worst economic storms. Consider building multiple income streams through online businesses that can operate from anywhere in the world, creating products or services that solve problems people face during tough times. The goal isn't just to survive the next crisis, but to position yourself to thrive when others are struggling. Perhaps most importantly, build a network of like-minded individuals who understand these economic realities and can support each other during turbulent times. The curiosities of human behavior during crises show that communities with strong social bonds and mutual aid systems recover faster and stronger than isolated individuals trying to go it alone. Join investment clubs, attend financial education seminars, and connect with people across different geographic regions who share your commitment to financial independence. When the next major economic storm hits, and it will hit, you'll want to be surrounded by people who saw it coming and prepared accordingly, rather than those who are just waking up to the harsh new reality. So here's the million-dollar question: are you going to be one of the people who saw this coming and prepared accordingly, or will you join the masses who wake up one day wondering where their financial security disappeared to? The curiosities of economic crises show us that knowledge without action is just expensive entertainment. You now understand the warning signs and the tools you need, but will you actually use them? Are you going to diversify across different geographies? Will you build those recession-proof income streams? The difference between those who thrive during the next crisis and those who barely survive comes down to the decisions you make right now, while you still have options. Stop waiting for permission to take control of your financial destiny. The economic storm is coming, and your future self is counting on the actions you take today. Don't choose comfort over preparation. If this opened your eyes to these economic realities, subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell. Staying ahead of these patterns might be the difference between financial freedom and financial disaster.